So, some unfortunate news broke yesterday, which was Drew Sanders tore his Achilles working out with the team before the NFL draft. So, hopefully, Sanders could return some point in the middle of the season in October or November. But until then, the Broncos got to find a way to replace Drew Sanders. I mean, I don't want to go full Moneyball on you guys, but last year, Drew Sanders had 258 defensive snaps. Let's say for 2024, they were planning to give him 400 defensive snaps. Where are they going to make up those 400 defensive snaps? We're going to talk about that on today's show. But really quickly, make sure to hit the like button down below. That thumbs up goes a long way, believe it or not. And in fact, our 21 video streak of 200 plus likes is in jeopardy with yesterday's video being just south of that 200 number. And then, of course, today. So go ahead and like today and yesterday's video. Would really go a long way to support the channel. But the first question when it comes to replacing Drew Sanders is, are you replacing an inside or an outside linebacker? Because those are two very different positions, right? They may fall under the same tree, but the reality is they have very different responsibilities. I ultimately believe when you look at Denver's linebacker room, Drew Sanders was in line to be more of an outside linebacker than an inside linebacker. And I base that off of what George Paton himself said back at the NFL Combine. Andrew Mason raised a great point in a tweet yesterday saying, in February, Broncos GM George Paton said that Drew Sanders, who is now out until at least mid-season after a torn Achilles tendon, would probably end up as an edge rusher. Once we left Drew at outside linebacker, he finished strong. So if you're looking to replace Drew Sanders as an outside linebacker, my first idea and first realistic option is in-house with rookie Jonah Ellis, the guy the Broncos drafted in the 3rd round out of Utah. That seems to be the most likely option to replace Drew Sanders and ballpark, let's say 400 defensive snaps. Like I said, last year, 258. Let's say they were planning to up that, but maybe not a crazy number like 500, 600, but 400, maybe 450, give or take. And Jonah Ellis seems like the most likely candidate to rise up the depth chart. Last year for the Utah Utes, 37 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 12 sacks. I'm a big fan of Jonah Ellis. In fact, I'm very much okay and on board with just turning it on over to Jonah Ellis, right? Giving him that much larger role in his rookie season because I'm a believer in Ellis. I think he is ready for a large role in even his rookie season. Last year for the Utah Utes, he finished 2nd in sacks in the Pac-12, only behind UCLA's Liatu Latu, who was the first defensive player taken in the past draft. There's a lot to like about Ellis's game. Good size, maybe not the greatest size when it comes to setting the edge and being a true anchor. 6'2", 246 pounds. I'm sure some teams would have liked him to be a little bit on the bigger side, but ultimately he's got a wicked first step, incredible quickness, the ability to just beat the tackle to the point of attack when the football is snapped. And I think Jonah Ellis in his rookie year is ready to have a big role and a lot of food on his plate. On top of that, there is the next element of, if you remove Drew Sanders from the equation for the start of 2024, and much of 2024 most likely, I think the ripple-down effect is Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito. They see more added onto their plate. If you're not going to have a 4-man rotation, or at least a 4-man rotation where you trust all 4 members of your relay team, then you're probably going to put a little bit more on Baron Browning, Cooper, and Bonito's plate, right? I'm just talking more snaps altogether. If they're not ready to give a whole bunch of snaps over to rookie Ellis, then you're probably going to give more snaps to Browning, Cooper, and Bonito, right? You're just redistributing the same slice of pie, which is total number of defensive snaps in every single game. Now, when you just look at the basic stats, there's a lot to like about Browning, Cooper, and Bonito, but when you do a little bit of a deeper dive, you walk away even a little bit more impressed, in my opinion. Is this a top 5 pass rushing unit in the NFL? No, I don't believe it is, but it's far from a bottom 5 unit, and I think there's a lot to like about the trajectory that Browning, Cooper, and Bonito are on. I mean, Browning missed the beginning portion of last year and really came on strong despite coming off a knee injury he suffered like Sanders, working out in the offseason. Cooper and Bonita, who took over from the original starters of Randy Gregory and Frank Clark, I mean, they pushed those veterans out of their jobs. They made George and Sean Payton change their mind about Frank Clark despite signing him in July. That's how much they liked what they saw out of the 7th and 2nd round draft pick. So I am personally more higher on this pass rushing group than probably your average NFL pundit for Bleacher Report or Pro Football Focus that says this is not an adequate group. I disagree. I think it is a good edge rushing group. And so sure, it would have been nice to have a much deeper rotation and give you some depth in case an injury pops up to one of those three guys. But if all three of those guys are able to play 15, 16, 17 games, I think they're going to do more than just tread water. I think they're going to be a really good unit. Now, what is your confidence level in the Broncos pass rush? Scale it 1 to 10 for me. Personally, I would put it at 7.4. I mean, I'm not going to stand here and say that they've got a guy that can go out there and get 12-plus sacks this season, but I think they got 3 really solid edge rushers, and I think that they're going to do a great job rotating in and out with one another. Then you toss in Zach Allen on the defensive line, John Franklin Myers, who they traded for from the Jets during the draft. And again, you're probably not going to have a 12-plus sack player. You're not going to have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but you're going to have a really tough SOB group to go up against. Now, next up on the show, I want to look at some free agent replacement options. Again, we are looking to replace Drew Sanders and his 400 projected snaps that I came up with arbitrarily for 2024. And if you're not going to do that with rookie Jonah Ellis, and you're not going to do that by distributing the snaps you were going to give to Sanders to the other 3 current outside linebackers, then maybe you turn to free agency. Now, before we look at those guys, I do want to share with you all a great deal going on over at Fanatics. If a Bo Nix jersey is just a bit too expensive for you, I don't blame you. Get yourself a Bo Nix jersey, t-shirt jersey. Go to chatsports.com/Nix shirt. It's 25% off, but these sales kind of come and go on Fanatics, so don't wait. I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video. Let's look at some free agent linebackers. First, we'll look at inside linebackers, and then we'll look at first we'll look at outside linebackers and then some inside linebackers, because it's still not crystal clear which camp Drew Sanders was going to be in for 2024. All signs kind of pointed to outside linebacker, but I wouldn't stake my life on he was going to be an outside linebacker without a doubt in my mind. So looking at some of the outside linebackers, one name that catches my eye is Markus Golden. One, he played under Vance Joseph in Arizona for a stretch there, where Joseph was the DC for the Cardinals. So you've got some familiarity and maybe some history that Vance Joseph would like to bring on over to Denver. We saw Zach Allen follow Vance Joseph from the Cardinals to the Broncos, so maybe another player who wants to continue playing under Vance would like to come over to the Broncos. So keep an eye on Markus Golden. I feel like that's a bit more of a Drew Sanders replacement than what you're calling for. Like, that would be more of like a Benito, Cooper, or Browning replacement. But if Denver truly had high aspirations and thought Sanders was in for a big year and they have to replace the production that they kind of projected to get out of him, then Golden would be an option. Now, another possibility, if you're looking to replace Drew Sanders as an inside linebacker, would be Kwon Alexander, who, just like Markus Golden, has a connection to this coaching staff. Kwon Alexander, who was with the Bucs and then the Niners, was traded to New Orleans back in 2020, ended up playing 19 games under Sean Payton and made 15 starts. Last year, he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He only started 2 games for them, appeared in 9, so not a very large role for the former 3rd, 4th round draft pick. I can't remember which one it was. The season before that, though, he did play all 17 games with the New York Jets. He's had some really good moments in his career. Unfortunately, injuries have been something that has kept him off the field, where he had some Pro Bowl caliber play to his game. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler at one point for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers early on in his career. So if the Broncos are trying to replace Drew Sanders, the inside linebacker, and we know Sean Payton loves to bring former players over to Denver, Alexander could be a name to watch for. Now, let me know what you guys think. Should the Broncos sign a linebacker? Do you feel like the absence of Drew Sanders is such a void that they should turn to free agency to fill that void? Or do you feel like they've got some good guys on their roster already? Next man up mentality. Let's see what the rookie Jonah Ellis can do. That's going to do it for us on this edition of the Broncos Breakdown. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. If you could go ahead and like today's video, it would go a long way to support the channel.